Weeks of protest renew the push for police reform.
If you have to have a license to cut hair, why shouldn't you have to have a license to be a police officer?
From licensing to funding.
I can foresee a world with an end of policing. That world's still going to have public safety in it.
Communities unite in calls for change.
I think it is time that the leadership of the city be proactive if they're really about change.
Boston 25 News in depth. The future of policing. Here now, Boston 25 News anchors Mark Ackerblom and Vanessa Welch.
Good evening. It has been an extraordinary week for change here in Massachusetts, change that will impact the future of policing.
The city of Boston declaring racism a public health emergency, and many more reforms have been announced. We're breaking down what all those changes will mean for you in the next 30 minutes.
The push for reform is the result of weeks of protests that continue all over the Commonwealth. Calls for social justice after the death of George Floyd.
Floyd was laid to rest this week, and the next day his brother appeared before Congress to say enough is enough.
When you watch your big brother, who you looked up to for your whole life, die begging for his mom, I'm here to ask you to make it stop.
Philonise Floyd testified before a House committee debating proposals to reform policing in America nationwide.
A major shift is already happening in Boston now. Mayor Marty Walsh declaring racism a public health crisis in the city on Friday. He is reallocating $12 million of the Boston Police Department's overtime budget to invest in equity and inclusion. Some of the money will be put toward implementing 8 strategies outlined in the city's declaration of racism. Trauma teams and counseling will also get funding, as will community-based programs, mental health supports for Boston Police, economic development initiatives, and housing support.
Mayor Walsh says the coronavirus pandemic highlighted inequality when it came to health care, access to technology, food. Then the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis fueled a new movement led by youth.
And we're determined to accelerate our work towards systemic change, to renew our nation and our city's promise of equal opportunity and justice for every single person. And I will join them in advocating for change.
Walsh's announcement comes the same week Boston Police clarified or changed certain policies and banned neck restraints except for imminent threats. Police Commissioner William Gross leading that effort and saying the department has been reforming since then President Obama asked cities to do so years ago. He supports changes to avoid having a George Floyd incident here.
It is the duty and responsibility, excuse me, of each and every one of our citizens to make sure that that cowardly murder will not happen here in Boston.
How are you going to operate with 20% less of your overtime budget?
So, we'll get the job done. Quite frankly, what I've heard in the community is we wear too many hats anyway. A child doesn't want to go to school, you call the Boston Police.
Boston's police union offered no comment when asked by Boston 25 News for reaction to the reduction in overtime.
The term defunding has different meanings for different groups. Boston 25 News reporter Evan White digs deeper into this topic.
Defunding the police, a concept in national and local protests with a definition that varies greatly from city councilors in Minneapolis to scholars at Yale. It generally refers to diverting funds earmarked for police departments and putting them toward social services.
Not possible, when you think about it.
Jeff Farnsworth is the police chief in Hampton and president of the state's Police Chiefs Association.
How do you prevent the neighbor or the person speeding like crazy up and down your street when, the kids are out playing?
Farnsworth speaking with Boston 25 News between calls with the Baker administration and Black and Latino caucus members in the state legislature focused on changing policing. One idea, a certification system for officers.
If you have to have a license to cut hair, why shouldn't you have to have a license to be a police officer? It makes sense. We support it.
Former Boston Police Superintendent-in-Chief Dan Linsky says that most budgets for police are set by contracts.
My budget was 90% personnel costs. It's already set by contracts. I know how much it's going to cost, and if you want to decrease numbers of police officers, then you can obviously decrease that number.
He says about 5% is discretionary, and stripping departments of cash would mean less training and less community outreach, more reactive policing as opposed to proactive. In Boston, Evan White, Boston 25 News.
Governor Charlie Baker says he does not support defunding police departments, but says he is in favor of reform.
Create a process that creates more transparency and accountability so that the law enforcement officers who are doing the right thing get the training and the benefit of that training and the opportunity to continue to protect and serve their communities. But there's a very fundamental and explicit process to deal with those who don't.
On a statewide level, lawmakers are working on a police reform bill. The House Speaker says the state bill bans the use of chokeholds by law enforcement, requires all officers intervene when another officer uses force illegally, and adds new licensing standards for all police officers. As Boston 25 News reporter Crystal Haynes shows us, most states already have similar standards.
It feels like it's a moment in time.
State Representatives Russell Holmes and Liz Miranda spoke with me minutes after a pivotal meeting between the Black and Latino Caucus and House Speaker Robert DeLeo on statewide police reform. DeLeo has set a July 31st deadline for the creation of an omnibus bill and is expected to utilize parts of a 10-point action plan presented by the caucus. It includes a peace officer standards and training or POST system to certify and decertify police officers, an establishment of a peace officer exam advisory board, and a bill filed by Representative Miranda Wednesday would set clear statutory limits on police use of force. State leadership have included police unions and community organizers in their discussions.
But the rest of the world, we live with certifications. We live with folks being able to go and do research on us, whether we be a barber, mechanic, whether we be a lawyer. All of us, or me as a financial planner, all of us have to go and be in a searchable database. And now officers are not accustomed to it, but we're asking them to now professionalize their industry as well.
This is to protect all people in the Commonwealth. It is to protect municipalities and towns across the state. And particularly the government, we are supposed to be the oversight of our systems.
State Auditor Suzanne Bump issued a memo Tuesday calling for a statewide standards and training program for law enforcement after her office found interdepartmental communication failures and out-of-date training programs and policing techniques. The study completed last year also found 30 local police departments may not be meeting the Commonwealth's in-service training requirement, and 84% of police chiefs were in favor of the program.
It's in place in 46 states. It's time for us to get on the ball.
I'm Crystal Haynes, Boston 25 News.
10 years after her brother was shot and killed by police, a local woman is renewing her calls for justice.
Every time this happens, I feel like it's pulling at a wound that I have that unfortunately will never go away.
25 investigates with an exclusive update on the case of DJ Henry.
Plus a message from a local officer shot in the line of duty himself about serving during these tense times.
The family of a local college student who was shot and killed by police in New York tells 25 investigates they want his case reopened. DJ Henry lost his life 10 years ago.
Investigative reporter Ted Daniels spoke exclusively with DJ's younger sister about the renewed push for justice.
The first time I met Amber Henry was in 2010, the year her brother was killed. She was a sophomore at Oliver Ames High School in Easton. She's now 25 years old and lives in Boston. Amber says she's found her voice and she's using it to try to get what she believes is justice for her brother.
This has been my life for 10 years, my family's lives for 10 years, so this is definitely nothing new for us. We're just hoping this one is the one to change it.
When Amber Henry speaks, it's from experience. And since the death of George Floyd in Minnesota, she says more people are listening. Amber has been sharing her brother's story at protests in and outside Boston. What do you think when you see what's going on in America right now?
It hurts my heart like it happened to my brother. You know, every time this happens, I feel like it's pulling at a wound that I have that unfortunately will never go away. And I hope for, you know, countless others that they never have to experience what we are experiencing and what we have experienced.
In the fall of 2010, DJ Henry was shot and killed by a now former police officer outside a bar near Pace University where he was a student athlete. Then Officer Aaron Hess initially claimed DJ tried to run him over with his car, but later admitted in court that he could have stepped out of the way.
Another officer at the scene testified that Hess was the aggressor when Hess jumped on the hood of DJ's car and fired multiple shots through the windshield. DJ was pulled from the vehicle. Cell phone video shows him handcuffed and left bleeding on the pavement.
If what happened to DJ 10 years ago happened today, do you think the outcome would have been different?
I do. I think people are very adamant about change, especially this generation. I watched my brother on the ground take his last couple breaths, and it's hard for me to really understand.
In 2015, I spoke with DJ's mom after the Department of Justice announced it would not prosecute Aaron Hess for DJ's killing. In 2016, the family received a $6 million settlement from Officer Hess and the town of Mount Pleasant, New York. Amber believes now is the time for the case to get a second look, and she wants Officer Hess to be criminally prosecuted.
This was murder. It's plain and simple. It's obvious. It didn't have to end this way. I have a hope in my heart and a fire in my soul that I'm not going to give up until it happens. And, you know, I know if my brother were here, he would do the same thing for me.
This is to the memory of Dan Roy Henry. Too much enemy fire to catch a friend.
Jay-Z and Kanye West wrote a song that mentions DJ Henry called Murder to Excellence. And recently, his name has been put on protest signs across the country. 10 years later, DJ remains a big part of his family and a growing part of a movement Amber Henry is proud to support.
We were never anti-police. We're anti-Aaron Hess because that is the man that decided to use deadly force and kill my brother. I believe people need to start looking within themselves, looking within themselves to see if they're part of the problem or they're part of the solution. And that's the first step.
The Westchester County DA's office did not respond to our request for comment until a day after this story first aired. A statement says the office is saddened at the pain the Henry family continues to experience. According to a spokesperson, the case was thoroughly investigated by the former DA, and a grand jury declined to bring charges against Officer Hess. The case could only be reopened if new evidence is discovered. At this time, there are no plans by this office to reopen the case. If you'd like to learn more about DJ Henry and the fund set up in his name, you could log on to our website, boston25news.com. For 25 Investigates, I'm Ted Daniel.
A New Hampshire police officer recovering after being shot on duty is urging the public not to judge all police by the bad actions of a few. Last August, Officer Paul Lewis was shot twice responding to a domestic violence call. Lewis says he's listening to demonstrators and he has a message.
Definitely some police do bad things, 100%, but that's not us. That's not the majority. So it hurts when I hear people say that all police are bad.
Lewis is still undergoing surgery but hopes to return to street duty.
Coming up, reaction from local police officers to this emotional week.
Months there were appreciated, and there was commercials thanking the people and the frontline workers on it. And then you fast forward a few months later, and now it's kind of the opposite.
The impact on young recruits.
And later, young leaders of the movement look ahead as we continue our in-depth look at the future of policing.
25 Investigates has been tracking issues with overtime and staffing levels at local police departments since the fall.
Boston 25 News reporter Wale Aliyu looks at the impact the push for reform and the pandemic are having on them now.
We've been following around these Northern Essex Community College Methuen Police Academy recruits for months as they get ready to join their local police departments. But their graduation is now delayed several weeks after 25 of these 96 recruits contracted COVID-19.
They are definitely not going to get the hours that they normally would get in the academy.
Lynn had the most recruits in the class, 18, as the department has been trying to fill 25 positions. But since all of these recruits won't get the 900 needed hours at the academy, local police departments will have to finish the job.
We're going to have to pick up that slack as chiefs in communities. When the officers come back here, we're going to do a lot of the training that they weren't able to do at the academy based on social distancing.
Many departments like Lawrence were celebrating lower crime numbers until a number of officers began battling COVID-19. Now officers tell me they're also battling a narrative of how much they are needed.
Months there were appreciated, and there was commercials thanking the people and the frontline workers on it. And then you fast forward a few months later, and now it's it's kind of the opposite. We're on the opposite end of it. And we're taking some backlash from the Minneapolis incident, and I think that it has had an effect on the guys.
It's a very emotional time right now, and then to have some of that sentiment come out, it's particularly challenging.
We don't want those bad officers. We want to make the profession something that everybody can be proud of. I know police chiefs struggle sometimes with trying to deal with removing officers, and there's union issues in place, and there's civil service issues.
The fight to remain fully staffed without lowering standards,
the palm down, and I'm trying to grapple and hold his hand,
continues to be a challenge for police. But departments we spoke with say they hope the extra challenges from 2020 will only bring them closer to the community to address issues and facilitate change.
That the overall failing is the same frustration that officers across the nation are feeling. We obviously understand people's anger towards what occurred, and we feel the same way. What that officer did, I think we all understand was wrong.
Wale Aliu, Boston 25 News.
Still ahead on this in-depth look at the future of policing, young voices of change.
They see us, they hear us, they're with us.
A frank discussion with 3 teen leaders in our community. As we continue our in-depth look at the future of policing, many of the loudest voices calling for change have come from youth leaders.
Boston 25 News reporter Crystal Haynes spoke with 3 teenagers about their honest goals moving forward.
Hi, my name is Brikti Sige, and I'm a first year in college.
19-year-old Brukti Sige is a published author, Harvard University student, and the daughter of Ethiopian immigrants. She organizes around issues of voting rights and civic engagement.
We want better for our siblings.
Brukti was named a presidential scholar in high school, but was denied a picture with President Trump because she wore a t-shirt referencing NFL player Colin Kaepernick.
But what's crazy to me is during that time, that felt like the biggest thing I could do.
My name is Ariana Constant Patton, 17. I go to Boston Collegiate Charter School.
To be an activist, you bear the weight of your community's grief.
17-year-old Ariana Constant Patton is a gun control advocate and youth organizer with Teen Empowerment and March for Our Lives. After losing 2 of her brothers to gun violence, Ariana was among a group of students who interrupted a high-profile gun violence forum featuring the governor and state attorney general.
Young people are leading the movement.
My name is Carrie. I'm 19 years old. I'm a freshman currently at UMass Boston.
19-year-old Carrie Mays has been a longtime advocate in Boston against gentrification, gun violence, and access to youth resources. She formed the Black Boston Network of Young Adults and organized a Black Lives Matter rally that attracted tens of thousands in May.
This is just an ongoing fight that our ancestors, passed off the baton to us.
As we have this conversation about what each one of us can do as part of the civil rights movement, I think about young people mobilizing that many folks just last week in all of this.
As we mobilize these protests and these huge movements, these massive movements, that we have to keep in mind, young people are at the forefront, risking their lives.
At the end of the day, we are the future. And if you're not including youth in the fight for the humanity and the future of humanity, I'm confused as to why you're even fighting.
The social contract of our rights has been broken. We are fighting for our humanity. And it's disappointing that I have to yell at these institutions and just say, I am human.
Driving the message, making sure that the message remains grounded in justice and activism for all people of color, and especially those who are the victims of police brutality.
Stop defunding school education and start focusing more on our systems.
It's not that we're bashing the police, we're bashing the system at which they derive from.
There's a lot of police officers who say they have to take the job of like a social worker, of an educator. And so if we take the resources that they're spending so much money on to do that and actually spend on guidance counselors, etc., and work with police officers to make our community better, that's something that I think both sides, if there is even a both side of this, can come together to work on.
What's the future that you're fighting for?
These politicians will care is if they work for us or they get voted out. And so I think mobilizing students and young people and just the rest of the community to get registered to vote.
We used to open the fire hydrant and use that as a sprinkler. Same neighborhoods where the ice cream truck used to roll around, and we was running inside for a couple dollars from our parents. We don't have that anymore. And I'm tired of saying, I miss that, I miss that, I miss that. I want that again. That's what I'm fighting for the future, for young people to be able to go outside and have fun again.
When it comes to the criminal justice system, when it comes to the housing system and gentrification and how Black and brown communities are being pushed out of their neighborhoods, Black Lives Matter when it comes to the school systems and the school to prison pipeline, Black Lives Matter, and so many other areas of society.
So thank you so much for joining me with this in this conversation. I think it's so important. And I'm grateful for all of you.
Thanks so much for joining us for this Boston 25 News in-depth look at the future of policing.
And be sure to check out our website for more resources and information. And from all of us here at Boston 25 News, be well.